Imagine a world completely different from the one we know today. Millions of years ago, Earth was dominated by creatures that seemed to have stepped right out of our wildest nightmares, or perhaps from our most incredible dreams. We're talking about the Mesozoic era, the time when dinosaurs ruled every corner of the planet. For an astounding 160 million years, they thrived in dense forests, vast deserts, and deep swamps, creating a scene that feels almost fantastical. During this time, colossal creatures ruled the world. The iconic Tyrannosaurus rex, a fearsome predator, reigned over the plains. But it was just one of the hundreds of species that flourished during this era. Alongside it, giant herbivores like the Brachiosaurus moved slowly, their long tails swaying through the air as their necks stretched towards the clouds in search of the highest tree leaves. The jungles were teeming with dinosaurs of all kinds, from small, quick ones like the velociraptor to the enormous and peaceful Diplodocus. The Earth back then was nothing like we see today. Global temperatures were much warmer, tropical forests covered large portions of the continents, and the seas were vast and deep. Oceans pushed inland, shaping a world entirely different from our own. The continents were not like we know them now either. They were all connected in a giant landmass called Pangaea, which slowly began to break apart, shaping the modern world. It was the Age of Giants, where each dinosaur had its own unique weapons for survival. The Triceratops, with its impressive horns and bony shield, used this armor not only to defend itself from predators like the T-Rex, but also to compete with other males in fierce battles for mating rights. In the skies, enormous creatures like the pterosaurs flew majestically, their membranous wings stretching wide as they hunted fish and small prey. It was a world in constant change, but one thing seemed certain. The dinosaurs were the undisputed rulers of Earth. They had survived for millions of years, adapting to every change the planet threw at them. But then, something began to shift. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the world around them started to transform in ways that not even the mightiest predators could predict. It was as if the Earth itself was setting the stage for an unimaginable event, something that would bring a sudden end to their long reign. And that's when fate began to conspire against these colossal creatures. What could have been the trigger? Perhaps a series of catastrophic events was about to unfold across the planet. Something that no dinosaur, no matter how large or powerful, could survive. Tectonic plates continued to move. Volcanoes erupted in places that had never seen lava before. And, above all, something from space was about to mark the beginning of the end. In this video, we'll explore the main factors that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. But before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss any content on this topic. Let's get started. As time marched on, the planet began to undergo subtle, yet relentless changes. The first signs that something was wrong weren't visible to the naked eye. The climate, which had been warm and relatively stable for millions of years, started to fluctuate more dramatically. Dense, lush forests began to give way to drier regions, and the ocean levels, which once covered vast stretches of land, began to fall in some areas and rise in others. It was Earth beginning to change its rules. The end of the Cretaceous, around 66 million years ago, marked the beginning of a transition period that the dinosaurs could never have predicted. They had ruled the planet for so long that it seemed unimaginable that anything could shake their existence. But what was coming would be far more than just a change in climate or vegetation. The end of the Cretaceous would be the final act of an era that, until then, had seemed never-ending. Tectonic plates, which were in constant motion, had already broken Pangaea apart into smaller continents. Volcanic eruptions were also intensifying in regions like India, where the Deccan Traps began spewing enormous amounts of lava and toxic gases into the atmosphere. But this was only a prelude to something far more catastrophic. The Earth, it seemed, was already in a state of imbalance, and it was in this setting that an unexpected visitor arrived from the skies. About 66 million years ago, a colossal rock, possibly 10 to 15 kilometers in diameter, approached at an unimaginable speed. This rock, which would later be known as the Chicxulub asteroid, would forever alter the course of the dinosaurs on Earth. At the moment of impact, the force unleashed by the asteroid was beyond anything the dinosaurs, or any life form could have ever conceived. The collision, which occurred in the region we now know as the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, generated energy equivalent to billions of atomic bombs, launching an absurd amount of dust, rock, and vapor into the atmosphere. The resulting crater, over 180 kilometers in diameter, became the epicenter of a global disaster. From that moment on, the planet began to transform into an inhospitable place. The impact was so violent that it triggered tsunamis, earthquakes, and wildfires on a global scale. But the worst was yet to come. What followed was a kind of global winter, with the atmosphere filled with dust and ash particles that blocked sunlight for months, maybe even years. The Earth was plunged into darkness, and the effects were devastating for life. Without sunlight, plants began to die, initiating a chain reaction. Herbivores, which relied on plants for food, quickly started to disappear. And without herbivores, large predators like the Tyrannosaurus rex also met their end. The life cycle that had been so well established for millions of years was unraveling in the face of an unstoppable event, one that no dinosaur could escape. The Age of Giants was coming to an end. As the planet plunged into the darkness caused by the asteroid's devastating impact, the consequences began to spread to every corner of Earth. The temperature dropped rapidly, initiating an extreme climatic event that scientists call an impact winter. Imagine a world where, suddenly, the warmth of the sun was almost completely cut off, leaving the planet cold, grim, and deathly silent. There was no longer daylight warming the forests, nor the scorching deserts the dinosaurs knew so well. The Earth, once vibrant and full of life, was now engulfed in what seemed like an endless night. Plants, essential for the survival of so many animals, began to wither. Without sunlight, photosynthesis nearly stopped entirely. This created a chain reaction. Herbivorous dinosaurs, like the majestic Brachiosaurus and the robust Triceratops, were already beginning to starve, unable to find enough food. And, as a consequence, the predators who relied on these giants for their meals also began to disappear. The mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, with its bone-crushing jaws, suddenly found itself with no prey to hunt. The cold was also unrelenting. With the atmosphere saturated with dust and particles, global temperatures plummeted. The heat that the planet had maintained for millions of years dissipated. And now, both dinosaurs and other forms of life had to face a brutal and constant cold. Some species tried to adapt, but resources were scarce. Few could escape the hunger and cold that swept across the planet. Moreover, the oceans, which had been vast refuges for so many creatures, also underwent drastic changes. Without sunlight to warm their waters, ocean currents began to shift, and many marine habitats were destroyed. Aquatic species that once thrived in abundance now faced unbearable conditions. Coral reefs, which sheltered thousands of marine organisms, died, resulting in the mass extinction of various oceanic life forms. What was once a planet teeming with vibrant life was now becoming a desolate land where survival was nearly impossible. This period of darkness and famine did not last just for days or weeks. It may have stretched on for months, even years, as the particles suspended in the atmosphere continued to block the sunlight. And it wasn't just the darkness and cold that devastated the Earth. Massive fires, ignited by the initial heat of the impact, still burned entire forests. Huge clouds of smoke mixed with volcanic ash, making the air thick and difficult to breathe. The planet, which had been a paradise for dinosaurs for millions of years, was now turning into a death trap. In this apocalyptic environment, only the smallest or most resilient life forms managed to survive. For the dinosaurs, especially the giants who had ruled the Earth for so long, this new reality was unsustainable. They were facing something that neither their strength nor size could overcome. Although the asteroid impact triggered a true catastrophe on the planet, it wasn't the only factor responsible for the mass extinction of the dinosaurs. The end of the Cretaceous was also marked by a series of intense volcanic eruptions in what is now India, known as the Deccan Traps. These massive eruptions had already begun before the impact, releasing colossal amounts of lava and toxic gases into the atmosphere. And here's the big question. Did these catastrophic natural events combine to create the perfect storm? The volcanic eruptions of the Deccan Traps covered the Earth with lava flows that stretched for thousands of kilometers, forming giant layers of basaltic rock that can still be seen in India today. But it wasn't just the lava that caused chaos. With each eruption, huge amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide were spewed into the air, creating a massive greenhouse effect that was heating the planet uncontrollably. This process released so much gas into the atmosphere that Earth's climate began to change drastically. The dinosaurs, which had already survived numerous climate changes over millions of years, now faced a planet that alternated between extreme warming and sudden cooling after the asteroid impact. The planet was, quite literally, under attack from all sides. The sulfur dioxide emitted by the volcanoes mixed with moisture in the air, creating acid rain that corroded vegetation. Plants, already struggling to survive without sunlight blocked by the particles from the asteroid, were now also being attacked by this deadly acid rain. The ecosystem was on the verge of total collapse. The impact on the oceans was equally devastating. The increase in carbon dioxide led to ocean acidification, making the waters more acidic, which made it difficult for many marine species to survive. Marine life, already facing an accelerated extinction cycle, now dealt with the loss of essential habitats like coral reefs and a drop in plankton populations, which formed the base of the food chain. The dinosaurs, as large and powerful as they were, couldn't fight against these forces of nature. The climate was changing too quickly for any species to adapt. The planet was taking hit after relentless hit, and life, in all shapes and sizes, faced an unending struggle. Even without the asteroid impact, these volcanic eruptions were already putting immense pressure on Earth's ecosystems. With the extreme heat generated by greenhouse gases and the intense cold caused by the blockage of sunlight, Earth was alternating between extremes that made recovery impossible. The Deccan Traps volcanoes, in combination with the asteroid impact, were creating a storm of catastrophic events that pushed the dinosaurs and many other life forms to the brink of extinction. This convergence of climatic and geological factors was creating a scenario where dinosaurs, despite millions of years of adaptation, were utterly defenseless. And so, Earth, which for so long had been home to these giants, was beginning to change irreversibly. What was once a planet dominated by colossal creatures was now becoming a desolate land, where life struggled to find any kind of balance. But before we continue, let us know in the comments which dinosaur you wish had never gone extinct. Let's dive in. Despite the devastating impact of the asteroid and the constant volcanic eruptions, the true picture of destruction isn't complete without understanding how these forces also affected the oceans. The waters that covered much of Earth also began to change drastically. And if the dinosaurs faced chaos on land, in the seas, the creatures swimming in their depths were far from safe. With sunlight blocked and the massive release of carbon dioxide from the volcanoes, the oceans began to acidify rapidly. The increasing acidity made survival difficult for many marine species, especially those that depended on shells and calcium skeletons, like corals and the small organisms that formed the base of the food chain. This was devastating for marine life, as these smaller creatures supported larger species like marine reptiles, fish, and other aquatic predators. Not to mention that the oceans, already disrupted by the asteroid impact, faced enormous tsunamis that swept over coastlines and permanently altered marine landscapes. The shock was total. Species that once ruled the deep waters were now struggling to survive in a completely hostile environment. Marine creatures, just like their land counterparts, faced an uncertain future as their habitats were destroyed and the once abundant food supply became scarce. This devastating effect on the oceans was one of the many fatal blows to life on the planet. The combination of a changing climate, oceans in crisis, and collapsing ecosystems led to a mass extinction that impacted far more than just the dinosaurs. Despite the rampant chaos that swept across the planet, something extraordinary happened. Not all dinosaurs disappeared completely. Some survived in unexpected ways. Amid all the destruction, a specific lineage of dinosaurs managed to escape the fate that doomed their giant relatives, the avian dinosaurs. Unlike the enormous tyrannosaurs or brachiosaurs, these dinosaurs were smaller, more agile, and crucially capable of flying or at least moving quickly to escape dangerous environments. Some experts believe that the smaller size of these dinosaurs, combined with their ability to adapt to different food sources, gave them a chance to survive during this era of devastation. While the large herbivores and carnivores struggled in vain to find food and warmth, the small, feathered dinosaurs could exploit niches that others couldn't reach. They fed on insects, seeds, and even small scraps of carcasses. This flexibility in their diet and lifestyle allowed them to survive when others perished. Over time, these small dinosaurs evolved, transforming into the birds that fly above our heads today. So, the legacy of the dinosaurs was never completely extinguished. It lives on, in an unexpected way, in every flap of wings we hear today. Before we continue, make sure to hit the like button so YouTube keeps recommending us to you. Now, let's keep going. As the planet changed radically and life as it was known collapsed, not all living creatures went extinct. In addition to the avian dinosaurs that evolved into birds, other groups of animals also managed to withstand this global catastrophe. But what allowed some to survive while so many others perished? Mammals, for example, were small, agile creatures that thrived amid the chaos. They adapted to the new environment with their ability to burrow, which protected them from the extreme cold and surface devastation. Additionally, their ability to regulate body temperature and their varied diet, which included insects and hardy plants, helped them survive in an environment where large herbivores and carnivores could no longer sustain themselves. We also can't forget about reptiles, which, despite losing their larger relatives like the dinosaurs, managed to survive on a smaller scale. Turtles, crocodiles, and lizards were able to endure the drastic changes in the environment, often because they had semi-aquatic habits or lived in areas that weren't as directly impacted by volcanic eruptions or the global winter. Another group that benefited from this extinction event were amphibians. Their permeable skin and flexible lifestyles allowed them to survive in both aquatic and terrestrial environments, giving them an advantage in a collapsing world. These survivors would become the species that inherited the planet, forever changing the face of the Earth. Without dinosaurs to dominate the ecosystems, these small groups thrived, evolving and diversifying until they became the new rulers of the Earth. After the collapse that wiped out nearly 75% of all species on Earth, including the dinosaurs, life finally began to reorganize. This mass extinction event, known as the KT event, was one of the 5 great extinctions in the planet's history. Despite its devastation, it also brought the opportunity for the rebirth of life in completely new forms. Without the dinosaurs dominating the top of the food chain, new ecosystems began to emerge. The species that managed to survive the event, like small mammals, primitive birds, and reptiles, began to fill the ecological niches once controlled by the giants. Biodiversity began to flourish again, but on a much smaller scale and with a different pace of evolution. Mammals, which had once lived in the shadow of the dinosaurs, now had the freedom to diversify and occupy the spaces left by their former rivals. This mass extinction, paradoxically, paved the way for the evolution of new species that would shape Earth's future. Over millions of years, these mammals would give rise to increasingly complex forms of life, eventually leading to the emergence of humans. This rebirth of life reminds us that no matter how devastating natural events may be, life always finds a way. The Earth, even after facing such a colossal catastrophe, began to heal, creating a new balance. The extinction of the dinosaurs marked the end of an era, but also the beginning of a new one, as the planet prepared for its next great phase of evolution. Even with all the destruction that swept across the planet and brought the end to so many living beings, the extinction of the dinosaurs leaves us with valuable lessons about the fragility and resilience of life on Earth. This event showed us how catastrophic changes can reshape the course of history, and how, even in the face of mass extinction, life can adapt and thrive in new forms. Today, scientists look at the dinosaur extinction event as a critical turning point in Earth's evolution, and studying it helps us understand the challenges we face today. Modern climate change, driven by human activities, mirrors on a smaller scale the imbalances Earth has faced in the past. The study of volcanic eruptions and asteroid impacts during the Cretaceous offers insight into what can happen when nature's delicate balance is disrupted. Furthermore, this mass extinction reminds us that no species is immune to change. Dinosaurs, which reigned supreme for millions of years, were wiped out in an event that lasted, relatively speaking, a short time. The planet's conditions changed so drastically and quickly that even the biggest and most adapted creatures couldn't survive. That is the great lesson of the dinosaurs' disappearance. Life is unpredictable, and Earth has gone through catastrophic events before. If we better understand the past, we can make wiser decisions for the future. After all, as the planet continues to change, it's up to us to learn from the lessons of the past and ensure that our actions today don't trigger the next great extinction event. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving our future content. See you in the next video.